Hi and welcome back to the channel. In today's episode I'll be doing the second part in my review of the Smena 8M. In the last episode I went through all the settings and functionality of the camera. In this episode I'm going to be taking it out and taking some shots with it, and at the end of this video I'll be showing you those images. Now also in the last video I asked for people to suggest which from a selection of films that you'd like to see me shoot. Not many people commented, but the day I went out the prevailing conditions were very sunny, so that really dictated as to what film I could really use with this camera. And also, as luck would have it, it was one of the 3 films that were suggested, and that was Ilford FP4, which happens to be one of my favourite films. Now, there isn't a setting on this camera for ISO 125 because it's got the ghost settings, and also when you set the films, when you set the ISO, you also set the aperture at which the camera operates, as you can see around there. And I went through this in the last video. So I chose the nearest film speed to the 125 with Ilford FP4, and that was 100 ISO. And that means that the aperture is set to f8. So all the images that you'll see that I'll show you at the end will be all shot at f8 with varying shutter speeds. Now I only use 3 shutter speeds, and I will show them if I can on the description of each image. And the film speeds that I used were 1/250th of a second, 1/1/250th of a second, and the slowest would be 1/60th of a second. So I'll put it in the description if I can, and if I can remember what each image was taken at. So what was my experience of using this film? I'll zoom into the camera and I'll show you a few things that were perhaps a little bit awkward, and some things that you have to get used to when using this camera. So let's have a look. Okay, so before I talk about using the camera, there is a used film in here, so now I've got to rewind it. So what we do to do that is, as I said in the last video, pull up the rewind lever, hold the shutter down, shutter release down, and then gradually rewind the film. So, I always try and leave a little bit of the case up to help with extracting film. There's still a bit of tension there. Oh. Right, let's do on. Let's stop filming. There we go, it's just released. So the next thing to do is open up the canister. So we press down on this little tab and it should spring open. At least that's the theory. Let's try it less caggy handed. There we go. And there we've got our roll of FP4 with the leader out. So I'm going to develop this in a moment, but I'll tell you which developer I'm going to use. But before that, I'll just tell you about using the camera. Now I went into the functionality of this camera and how it operates in the last video. So what we're going to do now is tell you what I found not difficult, but you need to get used to using each camera they've all got their different idiosyncrasies and little foibles that you need to get used to. So with the ISO and the aperture already set at the front of the camera, and you can't really change that, so all of the images taken were taken at what did I say, f8. So all we can choose really is the film speed, and as I said before, that is dictated by these symbols here. And as I said, I used bright sun, kaggy-handed here, yes, bright sun on this side, then slightly hazy sun, and then very sparse cloud. So that goes from, as I said, 1/250th of a second, 1/1/250th, and 1/60th. So then, in order to use the camera, once we've wound on the film from the back here, then we set the shutter release and then press the button. And as I said, you can take multiple exposures. So what I got into the habit of doing was, as soon as I'd rewound the film, as soon as I'd wound on the film, I cocked the shutter, and then it was ready to shoot when I came across a scene I wanted to take. Then I'd take the shot. As soon as I'd done that, I wound on and then cocked the shutter, so it was all ready. A couple of times I found that your fingers get in the way of the cocking lever, and you took the shot, and as you saw there, your finger catches the shutter release or the cocking shutter. That may have had an effect on the images, but we'll soon see. So that's just one thing I got used to, and after a while I found it no problem at all. You just remember to keep your fingers out of the way at all times. So there we go. So what developer am I going to use for the FP4? Now, it's a reasonably fine-grained film, but not the finest you're going to find anywhere. And I will do a review of FP4 because it is one of my favourite films. I'm going to use Rodinal. And this is a one-shot developer, and it's renowned for its longevity. And you can store this for, although they don't recommend you to store it for years, I've used 5-year-old, 7-year-old Rodinal with very good results. It doesn't give you the finest grain, but it does give you good results. So I'm going to develop this film in Rodinal, and I'll scan it in my scanner, and then we'll have a look at the images. Okay, hang on a bit. Before we go ahead and look at the photos, I just thought I'd say a few things about them. These photos have just been scanned. They haven't been post-processed. That as they came out of the scanner. Some are sharp, some I've missed the focus, some I've caught my finger on the cocking shutter, which has affected the exposure. It was a very bright day, so some harsh lighting, but I think in some of the photographs it's helped that. So yeah, I've included most of the photos. Some are sort of, I haven't wound the film on enough, which I said in the review was one of the problems I initially had, but once you get over that and you get used to it, then you can not do it anymore. Anyway, that's just a quick caveat on some of the photos that you're going to see. So without any more waffling, here's the photos. Okay, so that's a wrap up of the images I've taken. You've seen most of them. There are a couple that I wouldn't include because they're totally off. A couple of them didn't scan properly, but you'll get the gist of, yes, the lens can be very sharp. I've missed some focus on some of them, and the exposure is out on a few of them. So yeah, it's a review of the first use of a Smena 8M and the first roll I've put through it, and I will be using it again in the future, and we'll revisit this camera in part 3 in perhaps a couple of months time and see how I get on. I'll probably do some still life and a walk around the local streets and town, Birmingham city centre perhaps, and we'll see how use of the camera and familiarity can improve the images. But next up there's going to be a review of another camera and more images to show you. So stick around for that, so please like and subscribe, and please comment and tell me if there's any camera in particular that you want me to review. Okay, thanks again, bye.